Greed by Angela Duckworth. Summary of this book. This book is in 3 sentences. 1. The secret of outstanding achievement is not talent, but greed. A special blend of passion and persistence. Number 2. Greed is about having passion and perseverance for long-term goals. Number 3. Greedy people are able to maintain their determination and motivation over long periods despite experiences with failure and adversity. The 5 big ideas. Number 1. Greed is about holding the same top-level goal for a very long time. A top-level goal is your ultimate concern, a compass that gives direction and meaning to all the goals below it. Paragons of greed has 4 psychological assets: interest, practice, purpose, hope. Greedy people do more deliberate practice and experience more flow. For paragons of the greed, the long days and evenings of toil, the setbacks and disappointments, the struggle, the sacrifice, all this is worth it because ultimately their effort paid dividends to other people. Often, the critical, gritty, or not decisions we make are a matter of identity more than anyone else. The summary. Our potential is one thing. What we do with it is quite another. Compared with what we ought to be, we are only half awake. Our fires are dammed. Our drafts are checked. We are making use of only a small part of our possible mental and physical resources. The naturalness bias is a hidden prejudice against those who are achieved what they have because they worked for it, and a hidden preferences for those whom we think arrived at their place in life because they are naturally talented. In Duckworth's view, the biggest reason a preoccupation with talent can be harmful is simple. By shining our spotlight on talent, we risk leaving everything else in the shadows. We inadvertently send the message that these other factors, including greed, don't matter as much as they really do. In a study of competitive swimmers titled The Mundanity of Excellence, Dan Kumblich writes, the most dazzling human achievements are in fact the aggregate of countless individual elements, each of which is, in a sense, ordinary. Great things are accomplished by those people whose thinking is active in one direction, who imply everything as material, who always jealously observe their own inner life and that of others, who perceive everywhere models and incentives, who never tire of combining together the means available to them. Talent, how fast we improve in skill, absolutely matters. But effort factors into the calculations twice, not once. Effort builds skill. At the same time, effort makes skill productive. Consistency of effort over the long run is everything. Many of us, it seems quite what we start far too early and far too often. Even more than the effort a greedy person puts in on a single day. What matters is that they wake up the next day and the next ready to get on the treadmill and keep going and going and going. Greed is about working on something you care about so much that you are willing to stay loyal to it. It's not about falling in love, it's about staying in love. Greed has 2 components: passion, perseverance. Enthusiasm is common, Endurance is rare. Dark oath on passion. What she says. What I mean by passion is not just that you have something you care about. What I mean is that you care about the same ultimate goal is an abiding, loyal, steady way. You're not capricious. Each day you wake up thinking of the question you fall asleep thinking about. You are, in a sense, pointing in the same direction, ever eager to take even the smallest step forward, then to take a step to the side, towards some other destination. At the extreme, one might call your focus obsessive. Most of your actions derive their significance from their allegiance to your ultimate concern, your life philosophy. You have your priorities in order. Grit is about holding the same top-level goal for a very long time. Furthermore, this life philosophy, a Pitt Carroll might put it, it is so interesting and important that it organizes a great deal of your waking activity. In very gritty people, most mid-level and low-level goals are in some way or another related to the ultimate goal. In contrast, a lack of grit can come from having less coherent goal structures. When prioritizing goals, ask yourself, to what extent do these goals serve a common purpose? The more they are part of the same goal hierarchy, important because they then serve the same ultimate concern, the more focused your passion. Don't beat your head against the wall attempting to follow through of something that is merely a means to more important end. Giving up on lower level goals is not only forgivable, it's sometimes absolutely necessary. You should give up when one lower level goal can be swapped for another that is more feasible. As a species, we are getting better and better at abstract reasoning. Grit grows as we figure out our life philosophy, learn to dust ourselves off after rejection and disappointment, and learn to tell the difference between low-level goals that should be abundant quickly and higher-level goals that demand more tenacity. Dartmouth also on the maturity of principle. She says, over time we learn life lessons we don't forget. And we adapt in response to the growing demands of our circumstances. Eventually, new ways of thinking and acting become habitual. There comes a day when we can hardly remember our immature former slaves. We are adapted. Those adaptations have become durable, and finally our identity, the sort of person we see ourselves to be, has evolved. We are matured. Like every aspect of your psychological character, grit is more plastic than we might think. If you are not as gritty as you want to be, ask yourself, why? Any of the following 4 thoughts might go through your head right before you quit what you are doing. I'm bored. The effort isn't worth it. This isn't important to me. I can do this, so I might as well give up. Paragons. Paragons of greed don't swipe compasses. When it comes to the one singularly important aim that guides almost everything else they do, the very gritty tend not to utter the statements above. Paragons of the greed have 4 psychological assets: interest, practice, purpose, hope. From the very beginning of the very end, it is inestimably important to learn to keep going even when things are difficult, even when we have doubts. Passion for your work is a little bit of discovery, followed by a lot of development and then a lifetime of deepening. Interests are not discovered through introspection. Instead, interests are triggered by interaction with the outside world. What follows the initial discovery of an interest is a much lengthier and interestingly proactive period of interest development. Longitudinal The study of tracking learners confirmed that overbearing parents and teachers erode intrinsic motivation. Kids whose parents let them make their own choices about what they like are more likely to develop interest later and identify it as a passion. Duckworth on the motivational differences between expert and beginners. She says, at the start of an endeavor, we need encouragement and freedom to figure out what we enjoy. We need small wins. We need a pulse. Yes, you can handle a tincture of criticism and corrective feedback. Yes, you need to practice, but not too much and not too soon. Rush a beginner and you will blood gone their budding interest. It's very, very, very hard to get the back once you do. The greater as an individual is, the fewer career changes they are likely to make. For the expert, novelty is nuance. If you would like to follow your passion but haven't yet fostered one, you must begin at the beginning. Discovery. Ask yourself, what do I like to think about? Where does my mind wander? What do I really care about? What matters most to me? How do I enjoy spending my time? And in contrast, what do I find absolutely unbearable? To young graduates wringing their hands over what to do, Duckworth says, experiment, try. You will certainly learn more if you don't. The directed to follow your passion is not bad advice, but what may be even more useful to understand how passions are fostered in the first place. Kaizen. Kaizen is Japanese for resisting the plateau of arrested development. Kaizen is to change. Change some sort of your direction when you need to be, when you have to be. A crucial insight of Anders Ericsson's research on excellence is not that expert log more hours of practice. Rather, it's the experts practice differently. Unlike most of us, experts are logging thousands upon thousands of hours of what Ericsson calls deliberate practice. Duckworth on how experts practice, she said, first they set a stretch goal, zeroing in on just one narrow aspect of their overall performance, rather than focus on what they already do well. Experts strive to improve specific weaknesses. They intentionally seek out challenges they can't yet meet. Then, with undivided attention and great effort, experts strive to reach their stress goal. Interestingly, many choose to do so while nobody's watching. As soon as possible, experts hungrily seek feedback on how they do. Necessarily, much of that feedback is negative. This means that experts are more interested in what they did wrong so they can fix it than what they did right. The action processing of this feedback is as essential as its immediacy. And after feedback, then what? Then experts do it all over again and again and again until they have finally mastered what they set out to do. Until what was a struggle before is now fluent and flawless. Until conscious incompetence becomes unconscious competence. Finally, experts start all over again with a new stretch goal. One by one, this subtle refinement add up to dazzling mastery. Gritty people do more deliberate practice and experience more flow. There's no contradiction here for two reasons. First, deliberate practice is a behavior and flow is an experience. Anders Ericsson is talking about what experts do. Second, you don't have to be doing deliberate practice and experiencing flow at the same time. Deliberate practice is for preparation. Flow is for performance. Nobody wants to show you the hours and hours of becoming. They had rather show the highlight of what they are become. Duckworth has 3 suggestions for getting the most out of the deliberate practice. Number 1, know the signs. Number 2, make it a habit. Number 3, change the way you experience it. Each of the basic requirement of deliberate practice is unremarkable. Number 1, a clearly defined stretch goal. Number 2, full concentration and effort. Number 3, immediate and informative feedback. Number 4, repetition with reflection and refinement. For paragraphs of fret, the long days and evenings of toil, the setbacks and disappointment and struggle, the sacrifice, all this worth it because ultimately their effort paid dividend to other people. Most gritty people see their ultimate aims as deeply connected to the world beyond themselves. Yale management professor Amy has found that people have no trouble at all telling her which of the 3 bricklayers they identify with. No surprisingly, Amy's conclusion is that it's not that some kinds of occupations are necessarily job and others are careers and still others are callings. Instead, what matters is whether the person doing the work believes that laying down the next brick is just something that has to be done, or instead something that will lead to further personal success, or finally, work that connects the individual to something far greater than the self. Duckworth's recommendation for teaching yourself hope is to take each step in the sequence above and ask, what can I do to boost this one? Duckworth's 3 suggestions in the regard is 2. 1. Update your beliefs about intelligence and talents. Number 2. Practice optimistic self-talk. Ask for a helping hand. If you want to bring forth grit in your child, first ask how much passion and perseverance you have for your own life goals. Then ask yourself how likely it is that your approach to parenting encourages your child to emulate you. If the answer to the first question is a great deal, and your answer to the second is very likely, you are already parenting for grit. As soon as your child is old enough, find something they might enjoy doing outside of class and sign them up and require that they stick with it, at least one activity for more than a year. Kids who spend more than a year in extracurriculums are significantly more likely to graduate from college and young adults to volunteer in their communities. If you want to be greater, find a gritty culture and join it. If you are a leader and you want the people in your organization to be grittier, create a gritty culture. Over time and under the right circumstances, the norms and values of the group to which we belong become our own. We internalize them. We carry them with us. The way we do things around here and why eventually becomes the way I do things and why. Often the critical, gritty, or not decision we make are a matter of identity more than anything else. Often our passion and perseverance do not spring from a cold, calculating analysis of the costs and benefits of alternatives. Rather, the source of our strength is the person we know ourselves to be. Thank you so much for listening.